Back in 2017, I packed my bags and made the move from Big Sky, Montana back to my home state of Tennessee, specifically the Middle Tennessee region. Nashville, Murfreesboro, Brentwood, Franklin, Cool Springs, those types of areas. And at the time, I was working in middle management at 84 Lumber Components Division, #1 truss plant in the entire country. Now, since then, I have become a real estate agent and I've helped dozens of people relocate here to Tennessee, specifically Middle Tennessee. Now, they've come from every region in the country and a couple have come from other countries as well. And I've worked with people from New York to Florida, Georgia to California, Texas to Pennsylvania, Hawaii to Massachusetts, Pennsylvania to Louisiana, and just about everywhere else in between. Now, whether these folks were escaping skyrocketing home prices, high taxes, brutal winters, hurricanes, politics, and so many more things, they have found a home here in the Middle Tennessee region. Now, as well, during that time, I have met with quite a few people that have ended up telling me either Middle Tennessee or just Tennessee in general isn't for them. Now, there were things that they didn't realize that turned them off from the state and Middle Tennessee specifically. Believe it or not, I have unfortunately received phone calls that folks have found my videos after making the move here to Tennessee, and they've told me that they regret their decision to make the move here and wanted me to help them sell their home so that they could get out of the state as quickly as possible. Now, these folks confess that they had wished they had found my videos sooner so they would have been aware of the reality of the things they would be facing here in Middle Tennessee. And that is exactly why I am here today sharing those things with you. Now, what exactly are the reasons that people did not like Tennessee, or more specifically Middle Tennessee? Again, I have been in the greater Nashville area for around 7 years now, and in Middle Tennessee for more than 20 years, and I have numerous clients that absolutely love it here in Tennessee, but I don't want you to be one of those people who regret your decision to make the move here. Our ultimate goal in putting out these videos each week as a native Middle Tennessean myself, and Chris himself as a transplant here to Middle Tennessee from East Tennessee, is to help inform you and not try and convince you. And that's why we're going to talk about the 6 reasons you may not survive here in Middle Tennessee. And the last one, it may truly surprise you. Oh, and by the way, there is a bonus one at the end that I wouldn't say anyone has said it's prevented them from moving here, but this comment and comments along these lines consistently fill up Facebook forums and comment sections on YouTube because it still takes a ton of people by surprise when they find out this one thing about living here in Tennessee. Now, the first is going to be the weather, actually. Weather and natural disasters. So obviously, weather comes down to perspective most of the time. I mean, I've had folks come from Alaska, Florida, Hawaii, New York, Arizona, Texas, and more, so their perspectives about weather are all wildly different. Whether or not you think our winters are mild or summers are too hot and humid will depend on where you're coming from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down for you statistically so you understand the numbers, and then I'll give a little bit of my personal experience to you coming from growing up here in Middle Tennessee. Now, there were a few seasons that I worked on a ski resort and did some ranch work, so I've dealt with a little bit of snow in my life, but that's the perspective I'm coming from, as well as what my clients have told me, because some have been a little bit surprised. They said it wasn't what they expected, and especially when it came to the natural disasters here in Tennessee. A lot of people were surprised by some of these things and freaked out, texting me all the time, worried about weather. So we'll get into the things in just a little bit here, but let's talk about the weather in general first. So the first one that I know people really freak out about, and it really bothers a lot of people, and I'm not the biggest fan personally either, is the humidity. Now, it is a subtropical climate here in Tennessee, but we do see, thankfully, a mix of all 4 seasons throughout the year. We're relatively mild on those though, and we'll also get into that, but let's start with summer, as humidity and heat are some of the biggest things I hear from people that they don't like. Like, can I deal with the heat and humidity here in Tennessee? Now, again, perspective-wise, I hate the humidity over dry heat. Now, I've lived in western states, I've dealt with that dry heat, and I've absolutely loved it, but again, that's just my perspective. Some people absolutely love the humidity. My grandmother is one of those people. She loves it when it's 90 degrees and humid as a sauna outside. But here in Tennessee, it does get hot and humid, especially statistically from June to August, with the average we see being 87 degrees as the high and 77 degrees as the low. Now, this is one thing that is kind of tricky to live with during the summer. I feel like it just doesn't cool down some nights, and you're wanting to open a window and it says, nope, it's still way too hot out here. Way too hot, and way too humid too. Now, either way, from my personal perspective, summer is definitely hot and extremely humid. Now, to me, it seems the worst of it is in late July and August. Now, you get these thunderstorms that just roll through, and they make the humidity just skyrocket up to the next level where you are sweating to death out there. You can come out of an ice cold shower, step outdoors, and you will immediately begin perspiring. I mean, I've seen steam rolling off of the asphalt in the summer, and personally, the heat and the humidity has me showering multiple times a day with regularity during those summer months. And I'm gonna give you a little tip here, one that I've kind of learned the hard way. When the weekend rolls around and you're like, hey, it's the weekend, I'm free, let me sleep in, I'll do the yard work a little later. This is a terrible idea, folks. I have made this mistake a couple times of trying to do yard work during the middle of the day, and let me tell you, it is absolutely brutal. I actually have a video here of me on the channel doing some landscaping at about 10 o'clock in the morning during the summer, and if you want to see me sweat to death and look like I just jumped out of a swimming pool while planting some new shrubbery, then I definitely recommend you go and check that video out. Anyways, folks, like I said, get up early, get it done before the sun comes up, or do it late in the afternoon, because trust me, the humidity does something to you where you're like, I don't feel like I'm 18 anymore. I feel like I'm 100, and it sucks the life out of you. But either way, from roughly late May to early October is what we deal with. And that humidity, it's just a constant, folks. You're never gonna get rid of it. Now, come November, and we see an average high of about 60 degrees and an average low of about 40 degrees, which is far more manageable, and you get all the beautiful fall colors here in the rolling hills of Middle Tennessee. Now, this is when I personally thrive, because from about mid-September through late October, again, those are just those perfect days where it's nice during the day and you can sleep with the windows open at night, get some fresh air, kind of exchange the air in the house and get everything just feeling fresh and new. Now, December until February, it's a little bit of a different story, and that's where we primarily see our winter weather with an average of 58 degrees as the high and a low of 38 degrees. Now, winter is kind of funny because you'll have one weekend where it's literally 70 to 80 degrees and you've got thunderstorms like this week. We hit the mid 60s, almost up to 70 degrees yesterday. Extreme thunderstorms rolled through, lightning everywhere, rain all day, and then by the time we hit 8 p.m. we were down into the 30s. Now, it's just, that's Tennessee. And then 2 days later, after that, there'll be another freeze warning. And this happens, like I said, during a day, during 24 hours. And it can really make it hard getting dressed and prepared for the day, because you'll wake up and be like, oh, it's 30 some odd degrees outside. Let me throw on a jacket, some heavy wool socks, and, you know, get nice and bundled up and toasty. And by 11 o'clock, you're stripping off, throwing layers into the car because the sun has come out and now it's shorts weather in December. So over time, you get used to it, you know how to deal with it, and you just, like, you're always prepared. You throw an extra sweater in the car, you grab a rain jacket just in case it rains, and you always kind of know that you're going to be prepared for the weather, because to be totally prepared, you would honestly have to carry your entire wardrobe. So I will say we don't get the winter months where it freezes on end, but anyways, the closer you get to January, the cold typically tends to stay a bit more consistent. We don't see as many of those hot days. We do see more days that freeze, and we even have days that I can recall that it didn't even get above 30 degrees, and it's just cold. And I'll talk about rain and snow here in a little bit, but either way, spring months typically come in around 75 degrees as the average high and 53 degrees as the average low. One of the most awesome times of the year here in Tennessee, especially Middle Tennessee, runs from about March through the 1st of June. Now, you have those times again where it's like in the 70s, maybe the 80s during the day, and you can sleep with the windows open at night and enjoy really nice, crisp spring days. Now, it's not like that all the time though, where weather is in the 70s, possibly even the 80s during the day, and 40s and 50s at night. Windows open, right? Well, for you green thumb people, spring will absolutely trick you here in Tennessee. It'll come and you'll be like, yay, winter's over. We don't have to deal with the ice and the cold anymore, but don't start planning just yet. There's always at least 1 or 2 more freezes that sneak in, and if you started planting and didn't cover your plants, the frost is absolutely going to destroy it. So if you think spring is here, just know there's probably going to be 1 or 2 more really cold stretches left in the season before we get to that typical spring weather. So hold off on planting until after those last few freezes and you'll be set. Now, let's get into those natural disasters, specifically tornadoes. So first, let's talk about the stats, and then we will talk about my own personal experiences here in Middle Tennessee. So Tennessee has averaged about 31 tornadoes each year since 1997, and I'm talking statewide with that average. So the most common type we see are relatively weak, very short-lived tornadoes, and they typically occur between March and May each year. However, they can occur at almost any time of the year, and we've actually seen them here in the winter time. And from my personal experience, I've been in Tennessee for years and years, and each year our phone goes off and warns us of tornadoes and everything like that. Now, knock on wood, thankfully there haven't been any that have touched down right here locally, at least where I live. And we've had some scares, but just west of us around the Dixon area, there have been multiple tornadoes that have actually touched down in the area and done some pretty significant damage. Now, obviously you do not want to get out when this type of weather is in the area, and you know, it's just every time these alerts go out, I have clients texting me, freaking out and going, what do I need to do? Many of the residents of Middle Tennessee here are scared of, and I understand it. It really is a scary experience, but what about snow? You know, if you're moving here to Tennessee, then you can leave your snow shovels back at your home, because I've been here in Tennessee for many, many years, and I've seen snow flurries about every year, and every once in a while we'll get enough to break out the sleds and things like that, but typically by the next afternoon it'll all be gone. But because we're not prepared for snow here in the South, most schools and most jobs will truly have snow days and shut down entirely, including grocery stores, gas stations, renovations, really just about everything comes to a screeching halt whenever you get just a little bit of snow here in Tennessee. Now, folks, I've had clients come from up north and they come down here and they're like, what do you mean you guys are closing tomorrow? It's just how Tennesseans are. We're just not prepared for it here, folks. And so they shut down everything. Trust me, you will definitely be surprised if you're coming from a northern state or an area where you get a lot of snow, and people online will get mad at how many times the schools are shut down for storms, for random snow, big thunderstorms, all these types of things. And just trust me, folks, it's for liability reasons, and there's no reason to get upset about it. You get a day at home with your family, and you ride out the weather, and then you go on with the rest of your week. So again, leave your snow shovels back home if you're coming from a northern state, and then if you're coming from the west, then we need to talk about the rain, because this is one thing that I'll tell you we get a lot of here in Tennessee. If you look back, we actually had a pretty destructive flood back in 2010, and that particular flood was considered a 1,000-year flood, and it was quite devastating to the Nashville area. Now, obviously, this is not a regular occurrence, but severe thunderstorms here in Tennessee are no joke, and there are many times that my windshield wipers can't keep up with the rain, and it can be like that for days at a time here in Middle Tennessee. Now, here in Tennessee in the fall and winter, especially in November, we have had days and days of gray, just drizzling rain that does not seem to end. Thinking about relocating to Middle Tennessee? Well, I've got just the thing for you. My team and I have actually taken the time to create the ultimate relocation guide, saving you hours and hours of research, and I've linked it down below. From top employers, the best hospitals, and a boatload of other things that you need to know before making the move here to Middle Tennessee. The best part is, this guide is 100% free. That's right, you heard me right, 100% free. So just click the link in the description or the top pinned comment, and I hope that helps. Now granted, some days are just a thunderstorm that rolls through, but other times it seems like the rain here in Middle Tennessee just does not want to end, especially in those spring months. And they say statistically we receive about 51 inches of rain on average per year, while the national average is only 38 inches. So we're significantly above that national average mark. And now before we dive into these next ones, as someone who personally relocated to Nashville from Big Sky, Montana back in 2017, I know how challenging it is to try and go at this alone. Now, you're literally looking at homes online, watching videos, looking on Google Maps, and trying to find that best home and area that'll fit you and your family. Now, my team and I have been helping people from all over the country, so feel free to give Chris or I a call, shoot us a text, or schedule a personalized Zoom call with us. That way you don't have to go at it alone. So that kind of brings me to my next point here, folks. There is a lot of diversity when it comes to the layout of the land here in Middle Tennessee. Regardless of what you're looking for, more than likely we can find it for you here in Middle Tennessee. We have areas that have homes built in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, as well as new suburbs with new construction on every single corner. We just helped a very, very nice lady who reached out to us from one of our videos, and she was after a new construction home, and we got her in there, saved her some money at closing, and she's just extremely, extremely happy. And we're actually working with a couple of her family members who are also relocating to Tennessee. So anyways, folks, here in Middle Tennessee, we have homes with character. We have those cookie cutter neighborhoods where you may not know which house is yours. We have lake homes, homes on the rivers, homes on farms, $1 million homes, and even occasionally $100,000 homes, as well as kind of everything in between. And one thing that seems to really take people by surprise and even turn people off is that it gets rural really, really fast here in Middle Tennessee. It's truly, 1 minute you're driving, you pass a Walmart, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Publix, a restaurant, and by the next crossroads, all you see are 2-lane roads with the occasional dirt road coming in and tying into them. Now you'll see some trailer parks, and the only shopping in sight is a Dollar General, kind of like the area where I grew up. We just got our first stoplight in 2024, so we're living high up on the hog. We have moved up in the world. Y'all check that out, give it a Google. It's Beech Grove, Tennessee. Beautiful, beautiful area. I often have clients that will find houses online that seem to be a great deal, 15 to 20 minutes from downtown Nashville, but quickly they realize that home is kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're surrounded by trees, maybe some mobile homes, maybe some farmland, a trailer park, maybe a couple tiny farms, and around them, the nearest shopping is either at the gas station or that Dollar General. Now, I may have exaggerated a little bit with that 15 to 20 minutes. Typically, it takes you a little bit longer, but trust me, folks, it gets rural very, very fast here in Middle Tennessee. We've got a mix of it all, though, and some folks absolutely love that. Some folks really, really like the rural areas, and just because Tennessee is full of natural beauty just about everywhere you look, especially here in Middle Tennessee. I mean, I came back from Montana to come live here, and I couldn't be happier. It is really just an incredibly gorgeous place. So again, a little bit of mix of urban, suburban, rural, and I've even had clients purchase property to go entirely off the grid here in Middle Tennessee. So outside of the major cities, most of your towns here in the South offer a slower pace of life. Things just don't happen as fast as they do in the big cities. I've had a lot of clients come from big cities like New York, Miami, LA, Boston, Philly, and they let me know whether it was things like getting their car repair done or getting work done on their house, that things just took a whole lot longer than expected. I mean, you'll find a lot of businesses here in Middle Tennessee are closed on Sundays as well as Mondays, and I get it. In California or the Northeast, where folks are used to things being open 24/7, and then, being able to access these services whenever they'd like, totally different change of pace, where down here, you may end up having to learn an inconvenient lesson in patience. I mean, you can end up waiting days at a time to be able to access some of these services and some of these businesses. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, but it is just the reality of living in a smaller area, and I want to talk more about that pace of life. It really just is not for everyone, folks. And have you ever been in a hurry and then you end up stuck in a conversation that you have no interest in whatsoever because someone at the grocery store caught you out running errands and now you're 30 minutes late? I know this sounds a little far-fetched, or it may sound a little far-fetched for some of the folks living in the West Coast or the Northeast, but I have seen it happen, and I have certainly lived it myself. People just aren't in a hurry down here, especially in the grocery store, where you may be in a hurry and you're looking at your watch like, I gotta go, and all of a sudden the person in front of you wants to have this 20-minute conversation with the cashier about their kids and their dogs, or asking you how your kids are or your dogs are. People are just friendly, folks, and it kind of slows things down a little bit. So you gotta be patient here in Tennessee, and people, they just aren't in a big hurry here at all, especially not like how you see in those big cities. Some folks can't deal with this slower pace, and now we're getting down to our bigger reasons as to what turns folks off about Middle Tennessee and Tennessee in general. So one of the most common questions I get asked is, where are the neighborhoods that are walkable to downtown? And I want a neighborhood where my family can go on a walk or a bike ride to a local ice cream shop, and then, maybe a bike ride to dinner and things like that. And, they ask, where do these neighborhoods exist at? And to be 100% honest, there are very, very few of these neighborhoods here in Tennessee, especially outside of the Nashville area. Now, however, in Nashville, you have neighborhoods like the Gulch, East Nashville, Five Points, and especially Sylvan Park that are extremely accessible. And if you want to see more of those neighborhoods, we actually do have some videos on our channel where we go and walk through these neighborhoods. These neighborhoods have pizza places, they have coffee shops, ice cream shops, wine bars, Pilates studios, and so much more. And we've done a ton of videos about these neighborhoods if you want to learn about them, but really outside of those neighborhoods, it's kind of hard to find a spot like this, if not nearly impossible, in most of Middle Tennessee. So there are a couple neighborhoods that are connected to elementary schools, middle schools, and things like that, but outside of that, most neighborhoods aren't going to have sidewalks when you leave your neighborhood heading towards the downtown area, and most of the time it's gonna be 2-lane roads with grassy easements that will make you question your life choices if you have ever tried to traverse it or if your car breaks down on the side of the road. Now, I'm just being 100% honest here with you folks, and again, in other videos, you may have seen that there are areas near downtown Nashville, near downtown Franklin, near downtown Murfreesboro, where there are some scattered houses around that you would be able to walk to the downtown area and a couple of restaurants. Now, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times y'all are looking for these neighborhoods, and especially those neighborhoods that are within walking distance of downtown with amenities, and those are the ones that are going to be the hardest to find connected to the downtown area. And what I often see is that people want to essentially take their current living situation, the amenities nearby, the amenities in the neighborhood, even the size of the lot, and we'll kind of get into that here in a little bit, but they want to pick that current living situation up and place it right here in Middle Tennessee with the hopes of a price point obviously less than what their current values of their homes are, simply because of the information I share about our average price point a little later in our video. But again, I'll dive into all of this more in just a little bit, but it's all of that, moving your living situation, it's just not a reality, folks. It's not a reality here in Middle Tennessee. And a lot of the reasons that our prices are the way they are is because most of Middle Tennessee is going to consist of smaller suburbs than a lot of the places you guys are coming from. Our cities and our downtowns are far smaller than the areas you will most likely come from. We're not in Atlanta, we're not in Charleston, we're not in Orlando or Miami, New York, California, San Francisco, San Diego. We're not that, folks, and so a lot of those conveniences just don't exist here in most places yet. So you have to realize you're probably not going to have all the things that you have in your current hometown or your current living situation, especially if you're coming from a major city, major town, or a major suburb. And look, I get it. I grew up out in the country. If I wanted to walk to school, the grocery store, a restaurant, the movie theater, or really anywhere other than my mailbox, which was still a 1.5 mile walk one way, then I would have to start walking at least a day or 3 before I actually wanted to arrive. We couldn't walk to the neighborhood thrift store. We couldn't ride our bikes to go get ice cream. And let me tell you, folks, I grew up deep out in the country where, as I mentioned, we got our first Dollar General, or when we got our first Dollar General, we really thought we were high class and, living in the lap of luxury and convenience, even though it was still a 15-minute drive one way to get to it, but we still had one. So we were very excited about it. And it may also surprise you to know, kind of like I mentioned earlier, my hometown actually got its first stoplight in 2024. And, back when my parents moved to Beech Grove, they purchased 30 acres and built a beautiful 3,500 square foot home. And the grand total to create this beautiful sanctuary to raise a family was a whopping $130,000. And I know that's crazy, right? But back in 1999, the area was so rural that this was the going rate at the time. And we just aren't there anymore, folks. Now, my tiny little hometown, tucked away in a geographically unique and incredibly stunning part of Middle Tennessee, has actually been transformed with multi-million-dollar homes sitting on 5 to 30 acre lots, and the average price is now nearly $700,000 in that area. So I get it, you don't want to make those trade-offs and lose your convenience, but if you're going to live in Tennessee, there's a good chance you will have to lose a bit of that convenience, unless, of course, you are in one of those few areas we talked about earlier. Now, the big thing I tell people is that I think this trend may become more popular in the future. You know, you can go to downtown areas like Franklin and Brentwood, and they already have several neighborhoods exactly like what we've been talking about. And if you watch any of my other videos, you know that their growth rate was and still much above ours. You know, historically, these walkable neighborhoods weren't as popular to locals, and as we've become this hot spot for relocation, developers across Middle Tennessee have realized that homebuyers relocating here really want this. You know, they crave that convenience and walkability, they want amenities, they want the conveniences, and so I believe we'll start to see more and more opportunities like this down the line here in Middle Tennessee. And I've already seen some of the developers adding amenities that we didn't have just a few years ago. I mean, their neighborhoods putting in pickleball courts now. It's kind of crazy. And I know the pickleball is kind of a hot trend, and you know, neighborhoods with these level of amenities are kind of a hot trend in other places as well, especially where Chris and his family like to hang out down in Florida. You know, but we're jumping onto that pickleball bandwagon as well here in Tennessee and adding amenities all over the place. And I guess I shouldn't say we're, as I don't play pickleball personally, but you know what I mean. And we are still in those early phases of our growth in many areas of Tennessee. And I'm sorry to the people on Facebook pages that you know, try and fight the growth, but it's still happening whether you like it or not. And the developers are still learning from the dynamics of what home buyers truly want here in Middle Tennessee. You know, look, even we've seen Nashville adapting to the new trends and styles. We've seen Brentwood and Franklin really starting to change and adapt, Nolensville, and I believe Murfreesboro and Cool Springs and those surrounding areas will also start to catch on and begin adapting as well. Now, as I've mentioned, these are just some of the reasons that people have shared with me, you know, explaining why they decided Middle Tennessee just wasn't for them. And of course, they are coming from so many different areas around the country, and their perspectives are just different. And, you know, so that's why I'm trying to give you these different perspectives so that you can have more of an understanding depending on where you're coming from. Let me just give you an idea so that you can compare it to the area you are coming from. And I'm going to pull the Murfreesboro area just because it's the easiest to explain. So the city itself, at the 2000 census, the population was 69,933 people. Now, the greater Murfreesboro area, as of 2023, is now sitting at a population of 165,430 people. So that once smaller town has nearly tripled in population over the course of roughly 20 years. And let me tell you, the growing pains of now Nashville's largest suburb are very, very evident in day-to-day life. You know, traffic for a lot of people is getting worse and worse because there's just no possible way the county, the state, and the local government can get the infrastructure caught up with the population growth. And Murfreesboro is still growing at an insane rate. I've heard numerous times that if the city of Murfreesboro stopped everything entirely and construction took place 24/7, 365 days a year, that it would take us more than 10 years to get the infrastructure caught up to effectively manage current population numbers And again, Murfreesboro is still growing. So don't get me wrong, the city has been doing things. It's changing roads to try and make them better, widening the interstates, and having crews work on infrastructure 24/7, but they're just having a hard time keeping up with the infrastructure and the growth. And for a lot of people, they just do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, citizens raise their hands, fighting arguments, wanting to stop the growth. I mean, you may have seen this on local Facebook pages or Facebook groups, or had one of the angrier folks tell you, you know, we're full, you need to go back home. But I hate to tell them, a lot of you are still coming here, and they get mad at me in the comments sometimes, and they think I'm the one to blame. But again, there's just so many great things about Middle Tennessee and Tennessee as a whole that are attracting people to it, and it is why the state has become one of the top 5 fastest growing relocation destinations in the country. Now, it has calmed down just a bit since the pandemic is over, but you know, now a lot of the towns and counties kind of across Middle Tennessee are trying to play catch up. So what gives? And again, I'm glad the talks have started and they're trying to do things, but for a lot of people, unfortunately, and I've seen complaints all over the place, they just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's been things like restricting storage units and where they can build, and adding roundabouts all over the place. And you know, in the meantime, again, for a lot of people, they feel like it's just become too big of an area, and it's not the smaller town that they thought it was anymore. And Middle Tennessee could be considered kind of a growing suburb that's in its exponential phase of growth. So next we need to talk about cost of living. That's right, I told you this last one would surprise you, because a lot of you have told me, and you know, you may have seen it before, you've told me that you're considering moving here to Tennessee because you heard the home prices are cheap. Well, this certainly creates the wrong perspective for folks. Now, don't get me wrong. Me coming from the hills of Middle Tennessee and Chris coming from East Tennessee versus some of our clients moving from California and New York and Chicago and you know, other states as well as major cities like that, you know, they still think they're practically giving these homes away here in Tennessee, and you know, they're surprised at how far their money goes. But plenty of others show up and are surprised that their money just doesn't go anywhere near as far as they initially thought it would. And you may have seen this on some of the comments of my videos, you may have seen it on some other videos, and I post some videos of home tours, neighborhood tours, and you'll see comments of people saying that that home is so overpriced, yet that home sells in a day or a week or just a month. So clearly the home itself was not overpriced. And I often hear people telling me that they're just not seeing many homes on the market in the areas that they're looking, or that simply the homes that they're looking for are just not there. And I'll often look and tell them, and you know, there are homes, they're just a lot higher price point than what you've been looking at. And another one of the biggest complaints I get is that these homes in these new neighborhoods, and even the neighborhoods themselves, are just stacked right on top of each other, and they just can't stand it. They want homes with land and more space. And to be 100% honest, they do exist. The problem is they often cost a lot more than people had been hoping or expecting. And there are a lot of neighborhoods with half-acre lots or more, and even some new construction ones, right? But there are dozens of new construction communities in Nashville, and their prices typically come in, you know, from the high 500s and 600s, well up into the 7 figures, and you know, sky's the limit there. If you spend any time at all driving around Nashville, you're gonna see custom homes that are built on random lots from the 500s to well over $1 million, and I've seen it as high as $2 and $3 million. But oftentimes people's budgets just don't reflect the prices of those homes. So it's not that builders don't build homes on larger parcels and that they don't exist. It's just that your money just might not go as far as you thought it would, and the builders are just trying to build homes within the budget that most of the people moving there are buying them for. You know, again, our average home price is lower than the national average, but don't forget, that's for the average home. And what I've realized for a lot of people, it's not that the homes are priced wrong, it's just simply your perspective of what that home should cost is different than what you were expecting. So that's why I say cost of living is one of the big reasons people say no to Middle Tennessee and Nashville, is because their perspective doesn't always meet the reality of what it costs to live here. Look, just to be real, the days of phenomenal homes within a few minutes of downtown being only $700,000 are gone from what I've seen. And those houses that were in that $700,000 price point are now well into the millions, if not 2 million plus. And the days of finding a turnkey starter home for $150,000 are pretty much gone as well. Now, I'm not saying I'm above this price point or anything like that. You know, yes, someone did comment that on one of my videos that, oh, we're above showing $150,000 price points, but Chris and I have sold plenty of homes under $150,000, and I just haven't seen or shown one that anyone thought was livable, or in an area that they desired to live in a very, very long time. Now, look, I get it. I moved here in 2017, but since then prices have risen by a significant margin. You just cannot get the same home for under $200,000 anymore. Shoot, nowadays you can't get it for under $350,000 or $450,000 anymore, and it's just the truth of it, unfortunately. And while many have hoped and prayed for a market crash, it just hasn't happened, and there doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's still a ton of people like you relocating here to Tennessee and Middle Tennessee in general every single day, and inventory just can't keep up. I mean, yes, builders are building on every corner, but they're also selling those homes on every corner. It's kind of the reason they keep building them. Look, I wish I could tell you that we've reached a ceiling, but look at places like California and New York. We're far from the ceiling when it comes to home pricing. And as people migrate around the country, prices rise, and Tennessee has been one of those top states people are relocating to, and prices are just continuing to go up. Not to mention, the state has started attracting a lot of businesses here, which means more jobs and more people relocating. And that's just the reality of what happens when people migrate across the country, because as you know, that's kind of what happened in California. A ton of people and a ton of businesses went to California. For example, if you go to Silicon Valley, your basic starter home comes in well over $1 million. And a lot of people say, well, this isn't California. And they are correct, it's not California, but way back when, California wasn't like that either. And it wasn't the California it is now, and it's a different area, and Tennessee's kind of the same way. We're changing and growing, and it's a different area, and it's just over time people started migrating to this area, and that's just naturally driving up pricing. And when supply can't keep up with demand of people relocating, prices go up. And before you start to get after me here, I assure you, I'm not projecting that's where we're going. That's just not what I'm saying. I hope we don't go the same direction California has gone. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of perspective when we talk about pricing of what Chris and I have seen and what we've seen start to happen here in Tennessee over the last decade. And the bonus, folks, this is the one I have not had anyone say, I'm not moving here because of this. But it still kind of takes people by surprise, and that is income tax, or rather the lack of here in Tennessee. So yes, here in Tennessee, we do not have any sort of individual income tax. Instead, the state has a 7% state sales tax rate and an average combined state and local sales tax rate of 9.55%. So in total, the state of Tennessee collects $4,236 in state and local tax collections per capita. Each state's tax code is a multifaceted system with many moving parts, and Tennessee is certainly no exception to that. And like anything else in life, the first step towards understanding Tennessee's tax code is knowing the basics. So I encourage you to do your research, know what you're getting into, and just really educate yourself and be aware before you plan any sort of move here. So, you know, I hope that you've made it this far into the video. If you have, I really appreciate you. And so after watching this, if you've realized you could survive all of these things, you'll want to check out some of the other playlists here on our channel, because this is where I will truly break down all of the areas here in Middle Tennessee, from Nashville to Murfreesboro to Franklin and Brentwood, and so many more different incredible areas that make Middle Tennessee such a unique place to live. So that way you can figure out which area is best suited to you and your family's needs. So go ahead and check out that playlist, and we will see you here on the next one.